Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
It relates time rate of change of extensive property in the fluid to the external forces producing the change. And this Reynolds transport theorem, okay, so it's a universal equation, and by making necessary changes, we can convert it into continuity equation, momentum equation, and energy equation. So this equation is very important, uh, Lenz's transport theorem, because in our hydraulic engineering, we are applying continuity equation and momentum equation everywhere. Okay, so to solve any, I mean, to do any kind of modeling, we have to solve continuity equation and as well as momentum equations. Okay, so uh, what we do that we will take a control volume and then we'll apply the Reynolds transport theorem. Reynolds transport theorem, when we see, this is the Reynolds transport theorem equation. D capital B by dt is equal to d by dt of this beta rho d volume integration of control volume plus uh, beta rho v dA of surface integral. So this in this one, this midterm, so that defines the rate of change of that particular intensive property, rate of change of extensive property within the control volume, and this last term, that is surface integral of this beta rho v dA. So that defines the net rate of inflow into the control volume. We have simplified this, and for continuity equation, uh, it is written as ds by dt is equal it minus qt. I is equal inflow coming into the system, and qt is the outflow going out from the system. Then ds by dt is the rate of change of storage within the system. So, because this equation, because when we write that equation mathematically, we have to discretize that equation, okay, which is called as discrete continuity equation. So we can write that this is the ds by dt. So this is a differential equation, okay. This equation is differential equation. Pardon me. Is there any problem? Okay, I am unable to hear you properly. Students, if anybody put it on their mic, they can switch off, and if anybody put it on their video, that also they can switch off, so that the bandwidth will be high. Okay. So ds by dt, this is continuity equation. ds by dt is equal to it minus qt. So we have to integrate this equation, okay, to solve it mathematically. So sj minus 1 is equal this integration of it and minus integration of qt within the interval from j minus 1 to j delta t. So here you see that this equation ij minus qj, because here ij is, this is the inflow volume within the interval, I mean that is from previous time to current time. This is the outflow volume within the interval from previous time to current time. So that is equal to net storage, that is Hj minus 1. So we can write this Ij minus Qj as delta Sj. Then this we can write Sj is equal Hj minus 1 plus delta Sj. and this j, because it is a continuous function. I mean, because when we apply this equation for flood hydrograph or anything, because it's a continuous curve. Okay, so then we are integrating it from indices 1 to 1 comma 2 and so on until j. I mean until j. J is the current time. So we can write S1 is equal to this equation S0 plus I1 minus Q1, where S0 is initial storage, that is most of the cases it is 0, and so S2 is equal, again we can write S1 plus I2 minus Q2, and S1 is equal to this equation S0 plus I1 minus Q1, so we can substitute here. So finally, when we integrate it up to the current time j in the beginning, then we get Sj is equal S0 plus I is equal 1 to j summation of I minus Qi. So see, this is the data representation. So this is the either inflow or outflow to the, I mean inflow to the watershed or outflow from the watershed, and which is there because at outlet we are measuring that flow rate. Suppose in case of outflow, we are measuring outflow at the outlet, and so for that we use some any kind of a flow rate measuring instrument. So when we plot that with respect to time, it is a continuous curve. So when we use this in mathematical modeling, because this curve we cannot write as a function. Okay, very difficult, very complicated function if we represent by a function. Rather than what we can do, this can be written in, this can be presented in solving. We can present this in either sample data representation or pulse data representation. So sample data representation is already we have the curve, and at any time index j, we can directly get the ordinate and we can get the outflow rate. But this is also not very elegant way. The most suitable for mathematical modeling, or when we computerize it, we need to go for this pulse data representation, where the data outflow is presented as a histogram, and at any point of time j, the outflow is the integration of qj within the interval from previous time to jth time. So we will do one numerical model. So this is question. Calculate the storage of water on a watershed as a function of time given the. So here the data is given, that is rainfall is given, and as well as stream flow measured at outlet is given. Then the watershed area is given as 7.03 miles square, and initial storage is 0. Okay, so look at this table. It is highlighted yellow color. Okay, so this is the input data given, and finally we have to find the cumulative storage on the watershed. So you see here time t hour, in every interval of half an hour, uh, rainfall is given. Okay, from 0 to zero point 0.5 hour, the rainfall is 0.15 inch, and then zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.5 hour to 1 hour, the rainfall is 0.26. Similarly, 1 hour to 1.5 hour, rainfall is 1.23 inch. Like that, the rainfall data is given, and as well as outflow at the watershed is given. So you can see that at 0th time, the outflow is given as 203, and at zero point 0.5 hour the outflow is given as 246. Okay. Okay, you can see that at the zero time there is no rainfall up to 0 to zero point 0.5 is 0.15, but at zero time itself the instantaneous stream flow is 203 cubic feet per second. But don't worry, because this could be coming from either groundwater flow or previous rain. Now, see, this is the stream flow. Okay, so we have to convert it into volume, or because rainfall is given in inches, so this we have to convert in inches. So for that, we have to do the integration of this in 0.5 1.5 hour. That is nothing but half of 203 plus 246. Okay, that is 449. Okay. Just hold on. Okay, one student complained that the voice is breaking. I don't know whether it is same for others. Okay, because I am using wireless. Just let me check again. Okay, others it is fine. Okay, only like one or two students the voice is breaking, and that could be, I think, problem from their end. Okay, so anyway, this video presentation will be available. Okay, so I'm going to post it after the lecture. So if anybody has any problem, they can again listen to the again, they can view the presentation. They can see the presentation. Okay, so the incremental stream flow in terms of inches above the watershed, that is calculated here. How this is calculated? Because we have integrated within that interval from 0 to 0.5 hour. The ordinates are 203 to 46. So the uh, average that gives cubic feet per second. Then we have to multiply with this zero point 0.5 hour. Then we'll get cubic feet. Then we have to divide this by area. So the area of the catchment is given 1.96 into 10 power 8 feet square. Then we'll get in terms of feet, but 1 feet is equal 12 inches. So when we multiply 12 inch, we'll get this value. Okay, QJ. So we can see that at 0.5 hour the outflow is equal to 2 inch water above that watershed, 0.02 inch above the watershed. Similarly, at 0.5 to 1 hour, it is 0.03 like that. Okay. Now the incremental storage, so that is equal. So the incremental storage is equal I1 minus Q1. Okay. So I1 is equal 0.15 and Q1 is equal 0.02. So that is equal 0.53. So we'll get delta Sj. Once we get delta Sj, we have to add delta Sj to previous storage value. Then we'll get current storage. So 0.13 plus previous storage is 0. So that becomes 0.13. So similarly, at next time, I mean from interval from half an hour to 1 hour, the rainfall is equal to 0.26 inch, and whereas the surface storage, that is equal to 0.03 inch. Okay, so then the net storage, that is equal 0.23. then the cumulative storage is equal 0.23 plus 0.13, 0.36. So that way we have to calculate for all the times, okay, up to 8 hours. If you plot this rainfall and incremental stream flow, that is outflow, then incremental storage and cumulative storage. So they are all plotted here. So you can see that this is the precipitation input. Okay, this is the precipitation input. Whereas this is the stream outflow input. So these are all inputs given, and now we found for every time what is the delta storage. So that is given this. We can see that until there is a rainfall, there is a gain. So once the rainfall is over, there is a losses. I mean, whatever the stored water on the watershed is outflowing. So therefore, there is a loss in the storage, and cumulative storage, that is the cumulative storage Sj. So that is presented in this figure. Okay, you can see that this corresponding to the up to which time the rainfall is increasing. Okay, so you can see that the storage value is maximum. After that, rainfall is decreasing, and even less than the outflow, stream outflow. So therefore, there is a decrease in storage value. Okay. So when we given rainfall and stream outflow, then we have computed the storage with respective time. So next, this is the application of continuity equation. Now we can use Reynolds transport theorem for momentum equation. For momentum equation, extensive property is nothing but mass into velocity, whereas intensive property is that extensive property for unit mass, that is dv by dm. So that is equal to v. Okay. This dv by dm for continuity equation is equal 1, but whereas dv by dm for momentum equation is equal to v. So when we up, okay, and on the left side, this is the summation of forces which are causing this storage of so this net rate of change of momentum, that is equal to the applied forces. So these external forces sigma f is equal to this right side equation, and you can see that this first term, this is the rate of increase of momentum. Okay, so for steady flow, this term goes to 0. Okay, so you can see that for non-uniform steady flow, this term goes to 0. Then we can write sigma f is equal either inflow or outflow of, summation of momentum, that is inflow minus outflow. And for uniform steady flow, uniform flow means whatever is incoming is outgoing. So this also goes to 0. And since it is steady flow, this is also 0. So the summation of external forces is equal to 0. What are the in hydraulic engineering, in flowing open channels or flowing pipes, okay, flowing streams, the external forces are, one is gravity, because which drives the flow, and another force which opposes it, that is shears, that is we can say viscous force. Okay, so the sigma f, this includes gravitational force and viscous force. Gravitational force is driving and viscous force is opposing. So that means for uniform steady flow, gravitational force is equal to viscous force. So what is the viscous force? Effectively, viscous force is nothing but the frictional force. Okay. Because when the flow is taking place, the surface which applies some drag force on the flow along that wetted line, So that is called as a frictional force. So you can so when we apply that momentum and energy equations for uniform flow, it is shown up here. This is the open channel flow, okay, along the center line of the channel. This see, uniform, I mean open channel flow and pipe flow. Okay, there are differences between them. Open channel flow means the free surface. There is existence of free surface. I mean the top surface of the flow is in contact with the atmosphere. So that is open channel flow. Whereas pipe flow is a pressurized flow. Okay, so pipe flow, the entire, I mean perimeter of the uh, flow is in contact with the pipe. Okay, so there is no atmospheric pressure. So you can see that here, this dash line or this hatched line. So this shows the fluid. So this is the y is the depth, and z is, this is the datum height. Okay, and because here we are applying energy. So energy is potential energy. So energy at any cross section, that is composed of potential energy and pressure energy and kinetic energy. If you see, this is the energy equation at section 1, that is equal to Z1. This is nothing but potential energy, because this energy is derived from its altitude. And Y1, this is nothing but pressure force. Then V1 square by 2G, this is nothing but kinetic energy. So this is equal to Z2Y2 plus V2 square by 2G plus HF. So here HF is when the fluid flow is taking place, uh, there is energy loss, because this energy is consumed by the friction. Okay, the frictional force which is resisting the forward movement of the flow, that consumes this energy HF. So for uh, uniform open channel flow means for a prismatic channel, the flow depth is the same throughout. Okay, so at both the sections, y1 is equal to y2. Then since y1 is equal to y2 and it is a prismatic cross section, prismatic means the cross section is constant in the flow direction. So since cross flow depth is constant, then velocity is also constant at both the sections. V1 is equal to V2. So when we apply this in this equation, we'll get HF by L is equal Z1 minus Z2 by L. Okay, so this HF by L, that is the slope of this energy line, and whereas this Z1 minus Z2 by L, this is the slope of the channel bottom. Okay, so for study uniform open channel flow, the frictional slope is equal to bed slope. And for study uniform open channel flow, when we apply momentum equation, okay, see that when we apply momentum equation for uniform steady flow, the external forces, they balance each other. Okay, so there is no inflow momentum rate, and there is no change of momentum within the control volume. So just external forces, they're cancelling each other. So the external forces are, this is the viscous force, and this gamma L sin theta, this is shear, this is gravitational force. Okay, because you see the previous figure, L is the length of channel between section 1 and section 2. So AL, this is the volume of fluid, and then they multiply with gamma, then this is the weight of the fluid, and when we multiply with sine theta, that is gravitational force acting in the flow direction. So that is balanced by the uh, shear force or viscous force. Because the tau, this represents shear stress, which acts on the periphery of the uh, which acts on the wetted perimeter. That is the surface in contact with the fluid flow. So the P is the perimeter. So this shear stress which acts on a surface area of the surface. So this P into L, this is the surface area on which this shear force is acting. So that is parallel to the flow direction. So tau naught PL, this negative is applied because which acts in opposite direction to the flow. So when we uh, so when we solve this equation, we'll get tau naught is equal gamma r into SF, where is r is equal hydraulic radius. Okay, so hydraulic radius is nothing but area by perimeter. Anyway, because this will be covered in your fluid mechanics, I think that you are studying in the next semester. This is just for introduction. Okay, so shear stress at the bed of a open channel flow can be written as gamma RSF, whereas gamma is specific weight and R is the hydraulic radius and SF is the uh, uh, frictional slope. So, whenever there is a where flow is taking place in any open channel flow, there is energy loss. Okay, so the energy loss or head loss that is represented by HF. HF is equal FLV square by 2GD. This is called as famous Darcy-Weisbach equation. And so this F is the friction factor that depends upon the surface roughness. If surface roughness is very high, then friction factor is very high. So when the friction factor is very high, then the head loss will be very high. That means what this equation says that whenever flow is taking place in open channel flow, suppose surface roughness is high, then we need higher energy to push the flow. Okay, higher energy means where energy is coming from. Energy is coming from the gravity. Okay, that means uh, so if the slope is, the surface is very rough, then we need to have higher slope. Okay, for the same velocity with smooth surface. And we can write this from this equation. V is equal, we can write this equation 2g by f d into sf. Then d is diameter or hydraulic diameter. Okay, so d is equal 4 times hydraulic radius, because this is nothing. How this r is coming? R is a by p. Suppose if it is flow is in a pipe, then because this Darcy-Weisbach equation, which is developed for pipe flow, but we are using it for open channel flow. So for pipe flow, R is equal R open channel R is equal A by P. A is the area of the flow cross section divided by perimeter. Suppose in a pipe flow, P is nothing but pi into diameter, whereas area is equal pi d square by 4. So therefore we'll get R is equal d by 4. So when we substitute this d is equal 4r, then we'll get this equation. So this hg by 8g by f, we can square root of 8g by a, we can write as a constant c. So we can write p is equal c into rsf. So this is a very famous equation which is called as a Chayes equation. Okay. So later on, there is another scientist to Mannings. He has proposed another equation that in open channel flow, that is V is equal R power 2 by 3 S power of divided by N, where is N is called as Manning's roughness coefficient. Okay. So this N represents the surface roughness effects. So from this Chayes equation, he derived this Manning's equation, and by taking C is equal R power 1 6 divided by N. Okay. So when we apply C is equal R power 1 by 6 by N here, then we will get V is equal this equation. Okay. So this Manning's equation is very popular for open channel flow, and the same equation, because this equation is for SI units, and in United States, FPS system is followed. So therefore, uh, this Manning's equation is changed as 1.49 by n r power 253 into s power of. Here r is in terms of feet, okay, and v is in terms of feet per second. Whereas in this case, v is equal meter per second and r in terms of meters. And s is also in units. Okay, those also in SI unit. And this Manning's equation or Chayes equation, they are applicable only for turbulent flow. So you will come to know. I mean, in the fluid mechanics, in hydraulic engineering course, you will be studying what is turbulent flow. Okay. So there are two types of flows: laminar flow and turbulent flow. So in the laminar flow, flow is taking place in layers. Okay. One layer is sailing over another layer. Okay, and there is no cross momentum transfer between the two layers. But whereas in turbulent flow, flow is full of eddies. Okay, so there is a strong mixing is taking place in turbulent flow. In the next semester, you will be doing experiments of laminar flow and turbulent flow. So in the laminar flow, if you drop one drop of ink, the ink travels like a line in laminar flow. So, but whereas in turbulent flow, it is completely mixed. Okay. For example of laminar flow, the blood flow is in our veins. That is a laminar flow. Example of turbulent flow is this water distribution networks and flows in rivers and this atmospheric wind flow. These are all examples of turbulent flow. So this is one numerical example. Okay. The question is, there is a uniform flow in 200 feet wide rectangular channel. Okay. So this open channel, it can be rectangle or it can be circular or it can be trapezoidal. Okay. If you look at our storm drains in IIT Kharagpur, they are all rectangular channels. Okay. And if you look at any irrigation canals, they are trapezoidal channel sections. And if you look at big storm drains, like in big cities like Hyderabad or Delhi or Bombay, these storm water drains, I mean the pipes which carries the storm water under the roads, those are circular pipes. Okay, so in this example, it is a rectangular channel, and the width of the channel is given 200 feet, and the bed slope is given 0.03%, and the Manning's roughness is given 0.015, and the flow depth is given as 5 feet. Then we need to calculate the velocity and flow rate. Okay, velocity is not given, roughness coefficient is given, flow depth is given, the channel width is given, and channel slope is given. So you can see that here weighted perimeter, that is P, that is nothing but width plus 2 times depth. Okay, because the side walls, there are two side walls on both sides, that is 2 into 5, plus there is a bottom, that is 200. So this becomes 210 feet. The hydraulic radius, that is nothing but area by perimeter. Okay, so area is equal 200, this is width into 5 feet depth, 200 into 5 divided by perimeter 21 feet, that comes out to be 4.76 feet. The flow velocity is given by Manning's equation. The Manning's roughness coefficient is given by 0.015, and it is a uniform flow. Uniform flow means the flow depth is, it is a prismatic channel, and the flow depths are same everywhere. So for uniform flow, the frictional slope is equal bed slope. Okay, so Xf is equal S naught. So the slope is given as 0.03%. So when we write in numerical value 0.03 divided by 100, that becomes 0.303. Okay, 0.303. This is the bed slope. So equation is given, V is equal 1.49 by n r power 2 by 3 s power of. Already I explained to you this 1.49, we are using it because we are using FPS units. And so R is given as 4.76 and the slope is given as 0.003. Then n is given by 0.015. So from this application of formula, we'll get 4.8 feet per second. So velocity is 4.87 feet per second. So when the velocity is computed, then flow rate is nothing but velocity into cross sectional area. So 4.87 into area, that is 200 into 5. So then the flow rate is equal 4870 cubic feet per second. Okay, but as I told earlier, this Manning's equation is applicable only for turbulent fluid flow. So he has given a criteria, that is n power 6 and square root of RSF, that should be greater than 1.9 into 10 power minus 30. Then only we can apply this equation. So just we are cross checking whether it is a turbulent flow or laminar flow. So by given the criteria given by Manning's, so we apply this formula. Then we have got this 4 points into 10 power minus 13. So which is greater than the threshold value 1.9 into 10 power minus 13. See, although he has given this formula, there is another non-dimensional number which distinguishes laminar flow and turbulent flow. That is called as a Reynolds number. Okay, so Reynolds number formula is rho Vd by mu. Rho is the mass density, V is the velocity of flow, D is the diameter, then rho Vd by mu. Mu is dynamic viscosity. Okay, so there are threshold values for this formula. Suppose the Reynolds number is less than 2000, the flow is laminar. 2000 to 4000, the flow is transitional, and about 4000, the flow is turbulent. Okay, so if we apply Reynolds formula, when we get if we get Reynolds number is more than 4000, then only we have to apply this formula, Manning's formula, for computing velocity and flow rates. This is see, because for designing open channel flows, suppose we are transporting water from Kharagpur to, let's say, Calcutta. Okay, we have to construct a canal. Okay, but there are elevations. Okay, Calcutta has got some elevation and Kharagpur got elevation. So since Kharagpur is higher elevation, this is a hypothetical case. Okay, so for water flow from Kharagpur to Calcutta, the elevation of Kharagpur should be higher. Okay, and when we design a canal, because canal takes a certain flow rate. Okay, and that flow rate is function of the friction factor. If the friction factor, for a suppose the for a given channel cross section, if the friction factor is high, then it carries lesser discharge. Suppose the friction factor is less, that means it's a very smooth channel, then it carries higher flow. So for designing any open channel flow, we need to find the friction factor. Okay, we can make it. I mean, we can make it smooth by lining of the canal. We can make it smooth. Suppose we can make also rough. Suppose if we put some boulders on the bottom of the channel, then it will become rough. Okay, so we can control the friction factor. For design flow rate to take place in the open channel flow, we need to calculate friction factor. Okay, so how to calculate friction factor? Uh, uh, Colebrook and White. Okay, there are two scientists. They are given an equation to calculate friction factor, and this equation works laminar flow and as well as transitional flow and turbulent flow. So that the equation is this: 1 by square root f is equal minus 2 log 10 k's by 12r plus 2.5 by Reynolds number square root of f. Here f is friction factor, r is Reynolds number, k's is the roughness height, and r is the hydraulic radius. Okay, so by knowing these ks and then flow Reynolds number, but you can see this friction factor is on both sides. Okay, this is called as implicit equation. The friction factor is unknown value. It is there. This is the value we need to compute, but it is also part of the solution. Okay, so this is called as implicit equation. So this equation has to be solved by iterative procedure. First, we need to assume some f value, and then we'll get f on the left side, because since they are assumed ones, so they are not equal. Then we have to modify f value, so we have to do it until it converges. Of course, there are numerical techniques, we can solve it in one shot. Okay, there is a method called Newton-Raphson method, that is, you will learn it later. Using that, we can solve this equation without resorting to trial and error. So in this equation, there are two terms are there. This left side term, this represents roughness, and this right side, this represents a Reynolds number. Okay, so suppose for laminar flow, I mean, if the surface is very smooth, then we can neglect this term. Okay, friction factor is only function of Reynolds number. But whereas for highly turbulent flow, the friction factor is only function of roughness height. So you can see here for highly turbulent flow, the friction factor, this Colebrook equation, we can neglect this term, because for highly turbulent flow, the Reynolds number value is very high. So therefore, since the denominator is very high, this value almost negligible or goes to zero. Only we can include this value. Okay, so that is this equation. Alternatively, Moody is another scientist. So he the equation is represented in terms of a diagram. Okay, where the x-axis is Reynolds number and the y-axis is friction factor. Actually, there are two y-axis. Okay, relative roughness and friction factor. So by knowing the Reynolds number, okay, we can calculate the friction factor. Suppose the Reynolds number is very high, if you know this relative roughness, then we can calculate the friction factor F. Although, see, this is because earlier computers were not available, so engineers were using this Moody diagram to calculate friction factor. But now powerful computers are available, so we can directly program this equation to calculate friction factor. Okay. So next type of flow is porous medium flow. So porous medium flow is nothing but is a subsurface flow. For example, when there is a rainfall, so part of water infiltrates into the ground, and that water reaches deep groundwater. So within that groundwater flow, the groundwater, I mean the water flowing in the groundwater, that is called as a porous medium flow. So in the groundwater, because you can see that it is a, because this ground, it is soil particles, then there are voids, okay, and the water is flowing through the voids. If you see here, uh, this is the subsurface from which the flow is taking place, okay, and this is the, if you take unit volume of this material, we can see that it has got water and as well as soil. See in the, this is water table, okay. Below the water table, the soil is fully saturated, so we can have only soil and water. But whereas above water table, in this area, this air, it is not fully saturated, so it has got water, air, and sand. Since these voids are very small, okay, they are kind of millimeter scale, so the flow velocity is very small in the subsurface flow. So the subsurface flow is a laminar flow. So for laminar flow, the velocity or velocity is function of frictional slope, okay, and viscosity. So this equation is called as Agent-Poisson equation, okay, where the flow rate is a function of the pressure gradient. Okay, so this is called as Poisson equation. You will be, this equation is applicable for laminar flow. You will be studying this equation in hydraulic engineering. Okay, this is very important. You will learn its derivation also. So this D is the diameter of the pore, mu is the dynamic viscosity, gamma is the specific weight, SF is the frictional slope. So Q by Darcy, I mean he is a very famous physicist. So he has given an equation for flow through porous medium. That equation is V is equal K into SF. SF is this hydraulic gradient, or we can write it also frictional slope. Where is this capital K? Capital K is nothing but hydraulic conductivity. Okay, this is also called as permeability. So velocity of the flow through porous medium is given as K into SF. Okay, so K is the permeability of that soil or sand, then SF is the frictional slope, or this is called as water table slope. So, but this velocity, this is the gross velocity. Gross velocity means when the flow is taking place at any cross section, it has got sand particles and it has got water, okay, and water is not passing through the, I mean we can see the solids and voids, and the water is only taking place through voids. not through solids. But when we are computing this V, we are considering the total area, including solids and as well as fluid. So this is called as a gross velocity. Okay, but actual velocity through the force is equal V by eta. Okay, V actual is equal V by eta. This eta is porosity. Porosity is, that is volume of voids divided by total volume. Okay, so that is called porosity. So you can see that uh, porosity of a gravel is around 40% and porosity of sand is 50%. Okay, and silt is 50% and clay is 70%. So if the porosity is high, then the velocity will be, so see, the V actual is equal V by eta. Okay, so if the porosity is high, then the flow rate should be high, but of course uh, this clay having around 70% pores, but they are not interconnected, so therefore the flow is very less in clay. Okay, so flow will be more in either sand, in gravel, followed by sand. So this hydraulic conductivity, and you see that hydraulic conductivity is very high for gravel, followed by sand, and for clay hydraulic conductivity is very small. So hydraulic conductivity is small means the ability to flow through that medium is uh, small or less. So this is one numerical example. Water is percolating through a fine sand aquifer with hydraulic conductivity 10 power minus 2 centimeter per second. Porosity is given as 0.4. Then and this water is percolating toward a stream which is 100 meters away. 100 meters away, and the slope of the water table is 1%. Calculate the travel time of water to the stream. So in this numerical example, we need to find the uh, actual velocity. And for actual velocity, we know the formula, that is V is equal K into SF, where is K is hydraulic conductivity. Okay, so that is given as 0.01 centimeter per second, and whereas SF, okay, SF is, okay, sorry, K is equal 0.01 centimeter per second. So when it is converted meter per day, it becomes 8.64 meter per day, and then the slope of the water table is given 1%. So 1% is nothing but 0.01. So 8.64 into 0.01, that gives velocity V, that is 0.086 meter per day. But this velocity is taking, this is a gross velocity, okay. But actual velocity through pore, that is equal VA is equal V by eta, and eta is porosity of that sand, fine sand, and the porosity is given as 0.4. So VA is equal 0.086 by 0.4, that is 0.16 meter per day. And since this water is percolating through this fine sand towards a stream which is 100 meters away, and the time taken for this water to reach the stream is equal to 100 meter divided by V actual. So that is 100 divided by 0.216 meter per day. So it's come to 463 days. So you can see that to this groundwater flow, uh, it movement is very slow. Okay, even to reach 100 meters, it took more than 1 year. So now the time is almost 12. So I will stop it here. And just hold on, I'm taking attendance. Okay. This- okay, so I've taken the attendance already. I've shared this presentation with you. So uh, I will continue on tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow we have class from 8 to 10. So I will continue tomorrow. I will finish the rest of this analytical process. Then I will start on this atmospheric circulation. Okay, atmospheric circulation and water vapor. So hopefully tomorrow I will finish this rest of this and atmospheric circulation and then water vapor. So today I'll give you one assignment. I'll post it through Moodle and I will send one email. I'll give you like 2 3 days time to complete that assignment. And the material covered for that assignment is the last previous lecture on last week Tuesday. Okay, but tomorrow after up to completing this water vapor, so I'll give you another assignment. But I will for that I'll give you more time because you can do by next Monday. So thank you very much.